If you're buying an iPad for studying, then we need to talk. As there is a problem nobody is telling you about. And that has absolutely nothing to do with the hardware, as the iPad in 2026 is genuinely incredible for students. And the Apple Pencil Pro is the closest thing to real pen and paper. This is for sure the perfect study device. But let me break this down to you. There is a high chance you'll stop studying on this one and simply use your iPad to scroll Instagram on bed. Been there, done that. I have watched this happen to so many people, and the reason is always the same, specifically the AI side of things. As the second you try to actually use ChatGPT to study on your iPad, the experience starts to fall apart. They often forget to reference your study materials between sessions, and even worse, they make up sources that doesn't even exist. None of them feel like they were actually built the way students actually need to learn. 2 weeks ago, I came across an app, and that does one thing I've been waiting for ChatGPT to do since 2023. I will show you exactly what that is and also how I've been using it. But before that, I need to break down the ChatGPT problem properly. I'm Prithviraj, and let's dive right in. Even though ChatGPT is amazing, but the second I tried to use it as a proper study tool on my iPad, it started falling apart in ways I couldn't really ignore. The biggest issue is of course the memory. You can upload a 90-slide lecture deck, you have a great chat about that, but the next day when you come back to keep studying, and ChatGPT suddenly has no idea what you were doing. You will have to re-upload all your files, copy-paste your notes again, and the worst part, you have to re-explain every single subject every single time. That made me spend more time setting up my chats than actually studying. But the biggest issue was the sources. When you ask ChatGPT where a fact came from, it will either guess or in the worst case just make a citation that doesn't even exist. If you're writing an essay that's getting graded by an actual human, that's a disaster. So what I actually needed was an AI that remembers my materials between sessions, and also it should be able to exactly prove where my answers came from. I didn't need a smarter AI, I just needed a more honest one, and that's where things get interesting. The app is called Medley. The way it works is pretty simple actually. We just drag and drop all our course materials into Medley. Lectures, past papers, syllabus, whatever you want. Once all your materials are in, Medley will index everything. From that point on, every note it generates, every flashcard, every practice question and every answer it gives you is built only from your own stuff. And the best part is that every answer comes with a citation. That's the entire pitch. It's not trying to be smarter than ChatGPT or rather be a know-it-all about every subject. It's just honest about what it knows and where it comes from. And once you start using this on your iPad, the experience is genuinely different from anything else I've tried. Let me explain what I mean. The first thing I tested was lectures. Now obviously I'm not a university student anymore, but I have been watching a lot of lectures on Coursera and YouTube to test out this feature properly. The kind of stuff a real student would actually sit through. So when you open Medley on the iPad, we can simply pin the lecture slides on the left side of the screen and then hit on transcribe. Medley starts listening to the lecture in real time, transcribing the whole thing in the background while you take your own notes on top of the slides with the Apple Pencil. Now this is where it gets even more useful. Halfway through the lecture, when the lecturer says something that doesn't really make sense to you, maybe a term that you didn't know, instead of pausing the video or interrupting the lecture, you can simply type the question to Medley on the side and it will answer using two things at once. The current slide on your screen plus what your lecturer just said in the last few minutes. So the explanation actually matches the context of your specific lecture and it's not some generic textbook definition. After the lecture finishes, of course, you can ask Medley to generate notes and not just what was written on the screen. That was the moment ChatGPT lost me as a study tool. Now this is where the iPad actually pays off, and I want to talk about the Apple Pencil Pro in specific because this is where Medley feels like it was built for the iPad. It recognizes your handwriting properly, not the half-broken kind of thing, where it gets every third word wrong. I tested this out with my actual handwriting, which isn't really great as you can see, but still, it picked up almost everything. You can scribble a maths formula using your Apple Pencil of course, and Medley reads it as a formula, not just a drawing. You can write a question in the margin of your PDF, circle a phrase you don't understand, and ask Medley to explain. It reads your handwriting, looks at the context around it, and only answers that using your document. Annotations work the way you would expect them. You can highlight, you can write, and you can even draw diagrams, as Medley treats your annotations as a part of the document. So if you highlight 3 lines on the slide and then ask explain what I just highlighted, and it will explain you those lines in specific. This is the part that finally made the iPad feel like a real study device for me, not just a tablet that happens to have a pencil. But honestly, even with all of this, the feature that actually sold me on Medley wasn't the notes or lectures, it was rather The exam prep. You can upload previous year's question paper. Medley will read the structure of those papers, the way the questions are phrased, the marking patterns. It will then generate you a brand new mock question paper that matches the format of your actual exam. So this isn't a generic textbook questions or random MCQs from the internet. The paper will be of the same style of the exact exam that you're preparing for, using the topics from your own syllabus. Medley marks you in real time, gives you feedback on what you have missed or readings to revisit for questions you got wrong. Also, please consider hitting that subscribe button for more such videos just like this one. So is Medley actually better than ChatGPT? Well, that's what the title asks, right? For studying specifically with your own materials, own curriculum that you're preparing for, on a subject matter you're trying to learn properly. Yep, it's not even close. ChatGPT can't compete with a tool that's purposely built for this. For everything else, ChatGPT of course still wins. Writing code, brainstorming ideas, and drafting emails. And of course, I'm not deleting ChatGPT off my iPad anytime soon. But Medley is at its absolute best on the iPad, and it also works just fine on the iPhone. But the full experience really opens up on a tablet or a laptop. It is a paid subscription platform, which I know is going to put a lot of people off. But thankfully, they do have a freemium model so that you can simply sign up, and it also doesn't require a credit card. But you can test it out with your own materials before you actually plan to decide to get the subscription. But here's the thing, this is the first AI study tool that has made me actually want to study on my iPad instead of just doom scrolling Reddit on it. So if you bought an iPad and told yourself you'll be using it for studying and then quietly stopped using it for studying, then this is probably the missing piece. None of the hardware on the iPad is the bottleneck. The bottleneck was of course the software, as I just mentioned. And Medley is the first app that I've used that treats the iPad like a serious study device. I'll be leaving the link in the description box below the like button. Try uploading your own course materials. That's the only way to actually judge an app like this. But with that sorted now, if you would like to know what are my favorite apps on the iPad, cause there are a few, then let me help you with that. Click here on this video and over there I've shared the best apps for the iPad you must try out. Trust me, some of that will absolutely catch your eye. See you there.